All right, loved ones, good morning. We are back for I'm Losing Track episode 3, 4 of Truck Talks. It is July 6th, Monday, July 6th. So I hope that everybody had a wonderful 4th of July holiday. Obviously, everybody's got to be safe out there. So hopefully everybody's got 10 fingers and toes this morning. We know it's a busy weekend for our firefighters and first responders. So thank them for being on duty and in service to our community. And again, hopefully everybody was safe as we celebrated the 250th anniversary of this country. So now that we are on year 251, let's work to make the next 250 years better than the last 250 years, which means that we've got to get this country focused on doing the work of people, doing the work of communities, not political parties, not all of this special interests and division and folks dividing us while they rob us. We have got to come together as Americans and demand the future that we want, demand the things that we want to see. And so that's the energy that we're bringing to this episode of Truck Talks. Let's call this one People Over Parties, Solutions Over Chaos, and figure out how we're going to get there. Starting with all of you, remember, July 14th is the deadline to register to vote, okay? People have fought and bled and died for the rights that we enjoy as Americans to vote. The most patriotic thing that we can do is show up to have our voice heard by voting. So if you are not registered, you have until July 14th. You got about 8 days to sign up to vote. Make sure you get that done. Then make sure you show up at the primary on August the 4th. We're going to talk a little bit more about why that primary is especially important as we think about people over political parties in this episode. But yeah, make sure you're registered to vote by July 14th. Make sure you show up at the primary on August the 4th. Let's do this. We got this, fam. All right, so you see I'm all dressed up today. Just left a great interview with the senior community at Tallgrass Creek in Johnson County. We know that like everyone in this economy, our seniors are struggling. They're worried about Social Security. They're worried about aging in place in their home, about prescription drug costs and having access to the medications that they need, and to having access to the quality of life. You know, folks who have worked their whole life deserve dignity, for our elders. And we've got to make sure that we deliver that as part of a comprehensive set of solutions to really bring us together and make this American experiment and our American economy work for everyone. So great interview with the senior community at Tallgrass Creek. Like everyone, they love the energy. They love the solutions that we bring. It was nice. A woman walked out with me and said, "Erik, I did not know about you, but I really appreciate what you were talking about in that interview." That's how we do the work, fam. So thank you to Tallgrass Creek for having me. I am now in the car headed to Topeka. WIBW is going to do a candidate interview. So I think I'll be on air this afternoon. That'll probably come out before this video drops, but make sure you check us out on WIBW Topeka. Thank you for giving us an opportunity. We know that we've been all over the state, that we've connected with voters in person, in living rooms, on front porches, in community centers, in our town halls, in a number of functions and varieties. We are showing up everywhere across this state. But we also know that earned media is key to scaling that message and getting that message out. We do not feel like we've gotten our fair share of earned media, but we are continuing to do the work. And I want to thank folks like WIBW for helping us amplify these messages of unity and hope and solutions for our future. And so thank you, WIBW. I'll be on there shortly. All right, let's get to the point. People over political parties, right? The hardest thing, and you guys have heard me talk about it, the hardest thing about this race is being a Democrat. Let's just keep it real. For a number of reasons, folks across the great state of Kansas have something in their mind about Democrats. I've been called a demon-crat, a demon crap, a demon rat, all of these horrible things after folks realize that I'm a Democrat. But what's most interesting is as we're having these conversations, in the 10 minutes or so before they get into partisan politics, or they ask me, well, wait a second, what party are you? In that 10 minutes of us having a conversation about values and issues, They agree. The majority of Kansans agree with nearly every one of the pillars of our campaign. We've got to do the basics, the essential basics that make communities thrive, like healthcare, investing in healthcare. Everybody wants to be healthy, and especially in rural communities, they know the value of keeping our rural hospitals open, what that means to the lifeblood of our economy, not to mention the lifeblood of literally life and death when you are in a smaller town and you've got to drive an hour or two during a heart attack or a childbirth or an emergency. This is life and death stuff. Everybody supports healthcare. Education, this push to defund education through vouchers and other systems. I have nothing against private schools or parochial schools, but you should pay to go to those if you would like. And I thank those institutions that offer scholarships and other things so that kids can't afford to pay, have those opportunities. But let's face it, public schools educate everyone. And we have got to continue to invest in our public education system. I'm a product of public education. You've heard me talk about it. Many of these communities across Kansas don't even have access to a private school. And so investing in public education has been universally liked. Fixing our immigration system. We don't have to accept these false choices of having weak borders and weak dysfunctional immigration systems. We can do both. We can have strong borders because you're not a country if you don't have strong borders. So we can have strong borders, and we can also have a functioning immigration system that makes sure that people that are doing the right thing, that are working hard, that are contributing to our economy, that are paying taxes, that just want access to the American dream. And as I'm talking to folks in every sector of our economy across this state, from agriculture to healthcare to service industries, we have a workforce shortage. We need folks that are willing to fill these jobs, especially as we work to force our government to pay living wages and to make sure that we are respecting the dignity of work by paying people a living wage. We need a functioning immigration system. It bolsters our economy. It bolsters our morale. This whole narrative that immigrants commit crimes, not true. It's us native-born Americans sadly commit crimes at a higher rate than immigrant communities. So many immigrant communities want to come here and work hard and contribute, and we need a functioning immigration system to do that. So the majority of Kansans that I have met with agree on those basics. Then we get into economic opportunity and we start talking about tariffs are a tax. We've got to eliminate this tariff tax so that Kansas small businesses, so that Kansas farmers can compete in the global economy. We've got to make sure that we, again, raise the minimum wage so that people can afford to live in this country, that we build more housing so that people have a roof over their head. A good job, a good education, healthcare, and a roof over your head is the key to stability. These topics, the majority of Americans agree with. Last but certainly not least is moral courage. We have got to call out corruption everywhere we see it. That goes to the point of this talk, whether it's Democratic corruption or Republican corruption, whether it's Hunter Biden or Donald Trump Jr., we have got to call out corruption wherever it occurs, irregardless of political party. That is the only way that we build trust in government, that we continue to restore and uplift our democracy. We have got to fight this corruption. We've got to make sure as public servants, when we send people to the United States Congress, that they are working for the American people, that as your next U.S. Senator, that I am working for the best interest of Kansans. That's why we have not taken any PAC money. We have not taken any special interest money. We are the leading FEC filed fundraiser in this race, and it's been 100% from individuals all over this state and all over this country who believe in this message of shared prosperity for Kansans and Americans, but getting all of this dark money and dirty money out of our politics. We've got to end Citizens United. We've got to ban congressional stock trading. We're one of the few, I shouldn't say only, because shout out to Colin McRoberts. I think he took it first. We took it second. But one of the few candidates here in Kansas to have taken the political integrity pledge to get all of this dirty money and dark money out of our politics. So we've got to have the moral courage to do that. Last but not least, and this is where I get most frustrated with my own party, and I know many Republicans are frustrated with their party because Donald Trump has hijacked the Republican movement and the conservative movement and taken it down this hateful MAGA path. Go back and watch the clips of J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and people that are in his own administration talking about how corrupt, cruel, and inept Donald Trump is, And then fast forward to today when many of them, like my opponent, Roger Marshall, are licking boots. So we know that Republicans are fed up with that party. That's why we're going to beat Roger Marshall this year. But Democrats, I've got some tough love coming for you. We know that Kansans and many Americans are frustrated with a Democratic Party that always talks about change and talks about our values, but doesn't always stand firm in them. And don't get me wrong. We can study the data. We know that Bill Clinton was the last president to balance the budget and start reducing our deficits. We know that Barack Obama brought the biggest healthcare reform through the Affordable Care Act that we had seen. But we've got to keep pushing to go further as the Republican Party keeps going further and further right. And even Republicans are leaving that party because they see how far right and extreme that party's becoming. We cannot be told that the basics that I just spoke of, that the majority of Kansans agree on, are somehow radical ideas. I've been called a radical Black Panther by the National Republican Senate Committee. I've been called a communist and a socialist by people that probably don't even know what those terms mean. At the end of the day, I believe that what I just described, our economic agenda around healthcare, education, functioning immigration, uplifting worker rights, uplifting wages, making sure that we get a fairer tax code and a tax policy that benefits working class communities, not billionaires and trillionaires, that we end the tariff tax. All of these things, we protect Social Security. We make sure that Social Security stays solvent by raising and lifting the caps. These are all things that the majority of Americans and the majority of Kansans agree on. These are not radical ideas. In the 90s, these would have been bipartisan basic ideas. And as Democrats, we cannot be pulled further and further to the right and keep telling ourselves that we've got to elect old candidates, mealy-mouthed moderates, that we've got to somehow forsake our values in the name of electability. Folks are tired of hearing that. And so this is a moment, Democrats, Republicans, independents, let's share and let's participate in this election and participate in these electoral politics in a way that emphasizes our shared values, that emphasizes an economy that works for everyone, that puts aside Republican and Democrat and all of this partisan stuff that's meant to divide us and focuses on leaders that are going to keep it real, that are going to go to Washington and work for people, and that are going to emphasize these policies that the majority of us agree on. And last but not least, that means standing 10 toes down for our values. Kansans already went to the ballot box and voted to protect women's rights. To see the Republican Party and to see anybody, again, I got to not make this partisan, to see anybody trying to strip voting rights away from communities, trying to strip women's rights away from women when we've already voted on these issues, and now to be attacking immigrants and immigrant communities, we've got to stop all this nonsense, this chaos, this dysfunction, this division. This is bad for people. It's bad for communities. It is bad for our humanity, and it is bad for democracy. So I submit to you, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, let's focus on the values that we agree on, the areas that we align. Let's go get this country back on the right track by making it work for everyone. That means making it work for working class communities. And as Democrats, and as a new Democrat, not this old party of talk a good game, a virtue signal a good game, as a Democrat who's going to go stand 10 toes down on our democratic values and get done in Washington to uplift our community so we can get stuff done in Topeka as well. This is the energy that we are bringing to the United States Senate. It is people over party. It is real solutions over chaos. I am so honored to be in position to become your next U.S. Senator. If you can't tell, I'm fired up. And I'm good. I got to calm down before I go on WIBW. But listen, loved ones, I hope you see the passion that I have for this work. I hope you see the love that I have for our communities, for people, for uniting us and coming together and solving problems. I'm asking you to do 3 things. Get registered to vote. Even if you don't vote for me, I need you to show up and vote because that's your voice in this democracy. July 14th deadline, get registered to vote. August 4th, show up in the primary. Yes, please. If you're a Democrat, you'll see Erik Murray on your ballot. If you're an independent, you can ask for a Democratic ballot and pick Erik Murray and help out a lot of the other great candidates that we've been talking about if you follow our socials. And last but not least, bring somebody to the polls with you. Encourage your friends and neighbors, communities to get involved. This is a make it or break it year, and I believe we're going to make it. I love y'all. That's been this episode of Truck Talks. Thanks for your support. Erik Murray for U.S. Senate in Kansas.